Hi, and welcome to Chat Club. There's only one rule in Chat Club. Everybody talks about Chat Club. I'm your host, Alan Hilchey. Today's podcast, I have two guests that I think are community champions in our community. My guest today is Nikki Bro and Kevin Kavanaugh, and they're from the Wings of Change, a local support group for the first responders. I'd like to take the time to thank you guys for coming. I know that you guys are very busy, but I really appreciate you guys coming and telling your stories. And anyway, so we're focused on mental health, and that's basically what you guys are about. So I just want to get a little bit of, what are you about, Kevin? Like, tell your story.
My story. I worked at Atlantic Institution. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder in 2012. I retired in 2014 due to back injuries. I had a couple of back surgeries due to workplace accident, and retired with 28 years of service, and been dealing with the PTSD and finding positive ways to deal with it, and using it as a learning curve in my life, I guess, to make myself a better person, really.
Yeah. So you found it through through different things, through what do you like, through what? Just basically therapy or support from family?
Well, when I was diagnosed with it, I fought it. The denial, not accepting that I had that, because of the stigma, a big thing. Feel weak. You feel like it can't happen to you. How it affects the family, like by coming out. But how it was affecting the family, in the way I was dealing with it was by no means helpful. Anger, self-destructive, behavior, depression, anger, denial, loneliness. I had all those symptoms, and just coming to the point where, okay, I have to accept that I have this, and I need to find positive ways to deal with it, and how to combat PTSD.
So at what point during this whole thing that finally was the last straw that said, you know what, I need help? Like, I have to break my silence. I have this, because it's not easy. I'm a correctional officer too, and when I came through, when I grew up through the corrections, it was the old school, like the boy that falls off the bike. You don't show your weakness, okay? Get up, brush yourself off. Now, with mental health, now it's starting to come to the forefront. You're one of the pioneers, because, quite honestly, a lot of people didn't jump up, and you're one of the ones that has.
I guess hitting low points where I was just isolated myself from everything. No longer interested in what I used to enjoy, and realizing working with professionals. Also, you're a psychologist. I had a great psychologist, and he helped me in a lot of ways. Nikki's helped me in a lot of ways, and in realizing to control the things I can control, and the things the prayer. What do you call that prayer?
Serenity prayer.
The serenity prayer. I had
Yeah,
hanging
yeah.
in my kitchen for years, and
Mm-hmm.
just realizing, Lord, help me accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Because a lot of things we can't control, but we fight it, like we can control it, and it's just digging a deeper hole, like I did for a few years. And with the depression, you don't have any motivation, you have no energy. The isolation, it was it was going to get the best of me, unless I tackled it.
Yep.
And the Wings of Change, when Nikki found that, there was people after her for a few years to find a support group for first responders. And I like exercise. Finally, get out and got a little exercise, did some biking, did some walking, whatever, just to help another way to cope with it, to
Distract the
helps.
brain,
Yeah,
think about something
exactly.
else. Absolutely, yes.
reduces,
Yep.
reduces your fear and your worry because you're doing something.
Yeah, the
and
anxious,
also-
being anxious and stuff. Yeah,
Also learning, like, it's great to work out the body, but it's also really important to work on our minds, because if we can learn to control our minds and not let our minds control us, because a lot of times our minds will put bad thoughts in there and take us down a path. Oh, what if this happens? What if then you're going down these? No need to. We need to. We're in control of our minds and not learning how to do that. Learning our triggers, and finding positive ways to deal with this disorder, amongst other people with Wings of Change. Like I mentioned, it's been really amazing. We're helping each other. It's really good.
Well, Kevin, I'd like to thank you for telling me like your story, because it's not easy to come out of the silence and say, I have this and that sort of thing. And I appreciate you taking the time, because it's not an easy thing to come out and say that stuff. To say that I have this. I really appreciate that. It's brave. It's you're showing other people in my podcast that it can happen. So, Nikki, tell me your story.
I don't think there's enough hours in this day for my story. Well, Nikki, Kevin's better or worse half. It depends on who you ask. I was a single mom for a long time, and Kevin's not only my co-facilitator for Wings of Change, but he's also my spouse. So he's the love of my life. So I have 2 kids. My history is I am a survivor of abuse anyway. Then I went into corrections, and I was in that for a short amount of time in the mid 2000s, I guess. And then I switched over and I started working with crisis intervention. I did that for almost 12 years. So during that time, I've experienced a lot, obviously, which most people have. But towards the end, I was experiencing a lot of withdrawal. I wouldn't even say isolation as much, because I was still out there. So a lot of times people think if it's just isolation, that's your first clue. But when someone's really outgoing, and then even though they're around other people and they withdraw, that probably would have been me. So no one really would have understood what I was going through at the time. So the doctor was trying to tell me to go off work, and me being me is like, screw you, I'm a tough one. So during this time, I grew up with anxiety anyway. Then, and oh gosh, I think it was 2013 or 2012 or 13, I got diagnosed with depression. So during that time, it's because I just kept on fighting my feelings. I'm tougher than this. Even though I knew a lot about PTSD, and I've worked with people with PTSD, there's mental illness in my personal family. It wasn't because I was bigger than this, or there's no way I couldn't have it. It's I didn't recognize it because I was stronger than this. I had to be the tough one. You don't show feelings, like you guys said earlier. Mm-hmm. So, and then you're talking about an accumulation of like 2 years of constantly fighting everything. It felt like I was going in battle 24/7. Yeah. So during that time, I kept on getting worse, I guess you can say. I was not feeling well, falling asleep at supper time. So a lot of the, there's different forms of PTSD, because in 2015, I was diagnosed with PTSD. But leading up to this, so I'm sure I've had it for years before that, because slowly but surely withdrawing myself, still going out, but just keeping more things to myself. I was falling asleep at supper time. But yet at midnight, I couldn't shut my brain down. I was in fear. I am hyper vigilant all the time. But I was still going out. I was happy, but like Kevin, which a lot of people we do, I was a lot of time masking it with alcohol. Yeah. Because I just needed, it helped me calm down, it helped me relax, but sometimes it triggered me, because then I would get angry or I would cry or whatnot. So as the years progressed, and as I was getting worse, and which I thought in my head I was doing okay, and this is when it's hard for us to see people we know for a long time, and knowing they're crashing and burning, because I would be a classic example of crashing and burning. Everyone thought I was doing okay, but yet inside closed doors, when no one really was around, I was slowly dying. There's no other word for it. In order to stay awake, I would take natural supplements, and even though it might be good for most people, for me it was not. I was just trying to stay awake. I was just trying to battle everything. And so with the natural supplements I was taking and the high amount of stress I was under, when people hear stress kills, it really does. So I left my job, the job that I love dearly, but I knew I couldn't, my body wasn't taking it anymore, and I left the job. And then in December I end up in the hospital with blood clots. Fast forward 4 years later now, found out it was because of I have a genetic disorder, but it got triggered, the blood clots got triggered by stress.
Yep.
So if people think stress doesn't kill, I'm a living example, stress kills. I had hair falling out. I was not sleeping. I was abusing alcohol just to, have a normal night, I guess, when the kids weren't around. How did I deal? Well, the psychiatrist helped, my doctors helped. But like I said, because I've worked with people with PTSD, and with the counseling background I had, I was able to, I guess, deprogram, myself in somewhat of a way. But understanding triggers, I got that really early. So I really avoid my triggers, and I'm learning to cope a lot better. I'm far from perfect because I just got triggered not long ago, but my trigger lasts an hour maybe now compared to what it was years ago. When I think of all the things I've had to overcome, one of the biggest things was grief, because people don't understand how much grief is associated with PTSD. That was the hard part for me to move forward. It wasn't, there's no way I can't have a mental illness. It had nothing to do with that. It was no way I could, I'm not the same person I am before. I'm the fighter. I'm the one that's lived through hell and back. I'm the one that's the tough one. I can handle what most people can't even do. That's what I had in my head. And leaving that person behind and knowing that I'm weaker, in my eyes, weaker because I couldn't handle the stress, that part is turning into grief. So I was losing the old Nikki. And it was really hard to acknowledge that and move forward, because I had to grieve that part. I had to acknowledge, accept, and move on. And I couldn't do that if I wasn't understanding it. I was really grieving. So once I got to that aspect of my life that I understood that I was grieving the old person I was, hanging on to that person that I could no longer be. Mm-hmm. Once I let the old Nikki go and accept the new Nikki, and I call my PTSD now a blessing. When someone tells me that, they look at me like I'm crazy. I used to say, "On crack," because I tell them if I wasn't diagnosed with PTSD, I'd probably be dead. Yep. And people, they look at me and they say, "Why?" I'm like, because I would have kept going. Yeah. There was not an illness, because that would have stopped me. It would have been my body shutting down, which it did. Yep. And because I've acknowledged, overcame the grief and own this and see it as a blessing, I'm alive to tell the story today. Can I say the same if I wasn't diagnosed with PTSD? I can't say that.
You guys were talking about, I know for myself that sometimes you said, you went out, so you were kind of putting a mask on so no one could see what was going on. Mm-hmm. A lot of people do that.
Every day.
Yep. So I come up with a statement that people put a mask on so they don't make other people feel awkward. Because when you start saying that you have a mental illness, then people start backing up and so you're kind of almost like protecting them, but not really. Because,
For some people, yeah, but I was kind of, lucky, for me anyway, because there was my father's paranoid schizophrenic. Yeah. A lot of members of my family are mentally ill, so I never shied away from that. Yeah. I sat on the suicide prevention committee for many, many years. So being upfront and honest about mental illness has never been anything. If anything, I've been pushing it in people's face, if you will. But for me, putting that mask on was to hold me together. Yeah. I was quite lucky. I really didn't give rats what anyone thought. It was holding me together, because if someone could see my brokenness, if you will, then that would shatter their
perception of you.
Well, not as much as that. It was more like if they could see I'm broken, because I felt broken. If they could see I'm broken, then it's reality for me. Yeah. And that can't be a reality for me, because I have to be stronger. Yeah. That was hard for me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think you also, because I mean, it's not easy to come out, tell the whole world, your story. And it's, you guys are both community champions in my eyes for what you do for other people, taking your experiences and turning around and having groups and, putting forth your experiences to help other people. And this is what this whole podcast is about.
Thank you.
So, so how'd you get started in the Wings of Change?
Nikki could probably talk on that because it was a friend of hers that was.
A friend of mine many years ago, a paramedic, started telling me, it was 2015 we started, or 16, 17. Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Anyways, it was like 13, 14, 15. He was telling me about the death rate of first responders is quite high, and it was an alarming rate at that time. And he asked if I would be doing groups for first responders, and at the time I said I don't feel like I'm qualified to do it because I could not do it justice, but I said I would look into it. And that was many years ago. Lo and behold, who would have ever known? I ended up getting diagnosed with PTSD and having a support group, peer support group that actually helps. So this is how it started. But once I got diagnosed, for almost 2 years I didn't do much because I had to work through my path of recovery. Then when I started recovering and looking for help, that's when it brought back to the peer support. So I searched for a good 2 years. And then all of a sudden online, bang, Wings of Change peer support for first responders. And I said, you know what the hell? I'm going to reach out to Natalie Harris. Did I know who she was at the time? Nope, but I said, you know what? It's needed. And I wrote to her and I said, I've read your information on your peer support group that you're doing in Ontario, and you offered to give it to people. Would you mind if I ran it here in Miramichi, in New Brunswick, a little town, a city, but it's a little town? And she says, you're more than welcome. So, and this is how it started. So Natalie Harris is an author of 2 books, Paramedic Nat. She's actually spoken to legislation in in Ottawa for Bill C-211, starting the framework for PTSD Canada-wide. So it was quite an honor. So we're still connected, and she's an amazing lady. So at that time, it was April 2017 we started. We talked to her in late February, and by April we had it started. We were the second Wings of Change in Atlantic Canada. And at the time, I think there was like 20 Wings of Change Canada-wide. Now we're pushing 30 Canada-wide in 2 years.
That's wicked. Now we're going back to Natalie Harris. She's the founder of this, right?
Yes.
Okay, I've done my research.
Attaboy.
So I know there's Wings of Change in BC, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot in Ontario, because that must be where she's from.
Originated from, yes, Barrie.
Okay.
Yes.
So, when we get into that, I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff. So this is basically what attracted you to this concept, this peer group support.
It's under the friendship because along with my PTSD, I also suffer from moral injury. Mm-hmm. So the moral injury, if people don't know what that means, it means like the best way to describe it, I have no faith in organizations or officials or whatnot. Mm-hmm. I do, but yet I don't. I'm really working hard. Like I tell people, I have more faith in a Hell's Angel than I do social development, which is normally not the case, right?
Absolutely.
But that's where my moral, it's completely backwards now. So I didn't want something where someone above in some kind of organization is going to dictate on where we should feel or how we should feel, how the progress of anyone should be. So when I started looking, I wanted a peer support. So when I found this and I read the model that she had, it falls under the friendship category because there is different forms of peer support, and they can fall under organizations, and it could be structured with a therapist or whatnot involved, which many are. I wanted something where people could feel totally free, be themselves, not judged, and I know talking with different professionals, they couldn't understand where I'm coming from. I said, you can, and I'm quite blunt sometimes, and I said, just because you read it in a book doesn't mean you have any idea where I'm coming from. And so I felt that way. So I would not feel comfortable in a room with some kind of official overseeing peer support. This is why I chose to look and fight for peer support. We're under the friendship category. So it's strictly peers for peers who have experienced, and that's a mandate for us as facilitators. We have to have experienced operational stress or PTSD and functioning good, I guess. Well, we're half decent, but we have to be on the road to recovery so we can be inspiring to the people that choose to come to say, you know what, everyone has bad days. It's okay.
And then that's the thing I appreciate about it, because it's not like Natalie's group, or it's not our group. No. It's we put it out there to who would like to chair the next meeting, and people volunteer. I'll chair the meeting, and because it's very structured and it's
solution based.
It's nice to see.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So I'm going to get into my next question. My next question is going to be, why is peer support so important in the community, like with first responders? Why is it so important to you guys?
Big thing is, for a first responder, in my field anyway, it's from the corrections field, it's we tend to battle this on our own, and we battle ourselves. Being with other first responders in a room where just knowing you're not alone, like that saying, we're all alone in this together. You know what I mean? I love that. Learning from other peers, what tools they use when they get triggered, or what bothers them, what do they do to get through their day-to-day activities, what helps them. Maybe it's meditation. There's a meditation that Dr. Leonard and Kirby Matchett mindfulness that they offer, and helping to control our minds instead of our minds controlling us. Those things.
But connecting with other first responders, you can be open as well. Because the difference is going into any group compared to going with the first responders, or like-minded, if you will, because we see a lot of trauma. We're kind of dark. It's a darker humor we have. And even our thought process, especially after we've been messed up a few times, if you will, it's really dark. So going to a normal group or talking to normal people, if you will, and I hate using normal, but that's the way you see it, and describing to them, how at nighttime you can see how much darkness is around, and how much you really dislike this person you've been with all day, if it's an inmate or a person of, anyone, and you can vision, different things, and you tell that to the average Joe, they're like, huh. Well, that's interesting. But if you're getting stuff off your chest and saying that to a fellow first responder, they'd be like, yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
I get you.
That's the thing. You're there with other people who understand you.
Yeah,
and learning to open up and trust other people.
That's hard.
That's a big thing too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was a big thing for me. Normalize our feelings and what we're struggling with, just to make that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. What? In there.
Yep.
So, when we're talking about traumatic experiences, we're talking about events that happen that just normal people in society should not see. Mm-hmm. So we're talking like, I know I work in the jail, and a client could be cutting themselves or hanging or whatnot. These are real traumatic things. And I know when I work on the provincial side, which is not as hard as it is. So when we're talking about federal, there's a lot more trauma, a lot more events, because there's more violence in federal, obviously, right, Kevin?
And there's violence, I guess you've seen your violence at the jail you work at. Mm-hmm. There's violence in a lot of workplaces today. Mm-hmm. The hospitals are screaming. They're going through a lot of trauma and abuse. Mm-hmm. Workers,
employees, and people, and a lot of times people don't think they have a mental illness such as depression, PTSD, operational stress, because they believe it can only come from the inmates or the people they serve. They don't realize that you can get it from your employers. I've received mine from my employers because of years of severe abuse. It was just traumatic what I've experienced, and a lot of people have experienced the same thing Canada-wide. So when people think it's only, because I didn't see anything bad, I don't have an issue. Well, if you're being treated like a piece of shit 24/7, and you're worried that you're not going to make your next paycheck because if they fire you and if they treat you like horrible, toxic, horrible, yeah, years of
But
that
there's
really
a-
takes its toll.
And then there is the workplace itself,
Toxic, yeah.
the stressors of
There's
the job.
assholes everywhere, man.
Stressors of the job too.
Yeah.
Right?
So
So
now,
yeah, a lot of first responders deal with a lot of different issues for sure.
so I'm going to throw another question out. When we're talking about first responders, how big is the category, and where we, like, for your meetings, like what anybody that has PTSD, the first responder, what's your category of first responders?
Okay, so anyone that wants to attend our meetings don't even have to have a diagnosis. So even if they're just struggling with things that they've seen or done, and I brought my paper to make sure I didn't forget anyone. So for our groups, for Wings of Change Peer Support, it is for first responders, the normal, I guess you can say the fire, the police, and the paramedics. But it's law enforcement personnel, and that would include your sheriff officers, your court clerks. They could jump in there and help me out. Communication officers. A lot of times people forget about the 911 off.
Absolutely.
They hear these, they take these calls, and they have no idea how things end for them. Members of military. We do have some vets in our group. Healthcare providers. This is one of those things we hear a lot. ER nurses or palliative care nurses. They see a lot of trauma. They say, no, we're not considered a first responder. Yeah, yes, you are.
Oh, yeah.
Who else is child protection workers, animal service workers, and people are like, well, they see trauma. Funeral home workers. I didn't even know until we were going out, passing out the information about this at first. Funeral home workers, they show up on the scene if something bad happens. I didn't know that. Correctional officers, as we all know, and judicial. Yes. So those are all involved, but in certain areas, like, it really all depends. We're not hard asses and saying, okay, no, you can't come in. A lot of times we're hearing more and more about tow truck drivers are showing up on scene and seeing traumatic events. Absolutely. So they would be, if they feel like it, talk to us. You know, we can work it. We've talked with teachers of different things, and they could be during in service now, retired, or volunteer.
Yeah, because teachers actually can be first responders to things that go on in school.
Absolutely.
You know, and see some traumatic events.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not the traditional what people think of as first responders.
It's ongoing trauma, right?
So my next question, I love this one. What advice would you give someone if they were suffering along with mental health? What advice would you give them?
Okay.
Wow. Talk to somebody. When I look back at mine and the denial that I went through for years, no, I got this. No, I didn't have it. So if you're at the point where you're concerned, or even another family member or friend is saying to you, you're acting a little different. You sure you're okay? Well, maybe it's time you know what I mean? You need to take a look at ourselves and say, okay, what are the symptoms of this? You know, and just look it up. Yeah, I have that. I have my hypervigilance. I have my loneliness. I have my being isolated. I'm hitting all those. Like, yeah, maybe I do have a touch of this.
Yeah.
So, just being amongst other people that are
like-minded.
Yeah, like-minded and have dealt with this, and knowing you're not alone. Because that's the big thing. It's knowing you're not alone. Yeah, and finding the tools and to help you deal with the issues.
And for me, what I would tell someone that's struggling is, you know you best. Yeah. A lot of times, especially if they start going to the doctors and they're prescribing meds, and I'm not going to start on this rant or whatnot, but I know the doctors have been trying to get me on meds forever, and I finally agreed to take some antidepressants. And after 2 weeks, I seen my body was going through more withdrawal. I started to feel sadder, and I'm like, man, it's so easy. If someone wasn't strong-willed, they would just listen to their doctors and do everything that everyone thinks is best. You do this and it's going to help you. But yet, knowing I am having issues, but at the same time, I know my body. Listen to your body. Listen to your mind. It's struggling, but it's not gone.
Yeah, because there is natural ways to deal with it. You can...
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. So... the biggest thing is for people to know they're not alone, and they hear it.
Professional help is big.
Professional help is big, and so is social support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is don't care what anyone thinks. That's what prevents a lot of people. Don't give a rat's ass because they don't live in your world. Your world is hard enough. Worrying about what other people think is damaging.
See, what I've read, and I've done a lot of it, I love the non-judgmental, and I love the words you use, like safe environment, and I love that, the key words that I would look if I was going for a group. And I love that, and the support, and what Kevin said earlier about what do you do to help? And maybe it'll work for me, maybe it won't, but it's something to think about. Like everyone has their own coping mechanisms and how they deal with certain situations with trauma and stuff. I think that's uniquely important too. So I'm going to twist the question around. Okay. Now I'm going to look at, okay, so I'm a person. I see that person over there that's suffering. What do you do as a support person? What advice can you give to someone that is looking to support someone or trying to get somebody help? What do you do in that case? And that's a really good question because that's.
And you know what? It depends on the person. You're absolutely right. This is one of those things we've heard over and over for years. Depends on the person you are. Because I've lived with it, I'm the kind of person that I'll let you know. Okay, there's this help. Go see a doctor. It may not work for this one. It might not. It might work for you. Try all these things. When you're ready, let me know. I'm here for you. I'm not going to bug you.
Yep.
But I can tell you right now, if you plan on hurting yourself, hurting others, or I see that you're in a very, very dark place, your ass is in the hospital. I will call myself. There's no questions asked. I'd rather you be alive to hate me than not. But I'm the tough love kind of person also. I'll get the shirt off my back to help you, but I'm not going to do it until you try to help yourself first. Kevin.
For me, like I've had people that come from my field now, that one guy in particular, he'll know that somebody's gone through a traumatic event and just be at work and he'll say, like, I know that guy's not coping well with that. And then he said, I'll go over and say, you know what, are you okay? Because you seem a little different after that incident. And if he wants to open up, great. If he doesn't, great. That's okay too. Just them knowing that they have someone that cares about them and just sitting with them sometimes, not saying a word.
A lot of times everyone wants to jump in and say, do this, do this.
Because as helpers, that's what we want to do. We want to jump in. Now we can do this.
But sometimes people don't even know what they're feeling. So just having that someone sit there and have a coffee and watch a game, pretty easy.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing when you're asking is, are you okay? Yeah. Is there anything I can do? And then that would, back in your day, would that have helped you more? Like being on the edge and knowing that if someone come to you and saying, hey, Kevin, are you okay? How you doing? Would that have opened up a little more for you, do you think?
Well, to be truthful, I probably wouldn't have opened up anymore, but at the same time, it would have been nice to know that was there, right? Looking back, that, you know what, hey, if it was to the point, hey, I know I can call that guy.
Yeah.
I know he understands.
So it comes to the point where you know you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing with PTSD, anxiety, depression, a lot of these mental health issues. And I'm calling them challenges. I don't want to call them issues. I think it's challenge.
Yeah.
Because issues seems like it's an ongoing issue. It is, but it's a challenge every day.
Yep.
That's the way I look at it. So, I mean, so you're in this. So what's your goal? Like, where do you see yourself 5-10 years in this organization? I know it's a big part of yours right now. So I know you're coordinator, no, Atlantic coordinator, Nick?
For me, as of the summer, the regional coordinator for Eastern Canada and Quebec.
Okay.
So because it's so broad, Canada-wide now, and Catherine Hamilton is actually the lady who's overseeing all of it, she just can't do it all. Yep. So there's a few in Ontario, there's out west, whatnot, and so here. So what do we want to see here? Meetings. That's it. It's just meetings. They can have one around every corner, if you will. It's like, so people wants to feel, is like going to a group. I don't care what it is. Going to a peer support or going for help should be as easy as walking into your store and getting a quart of milk. That's how easy it should be. Want to see Wings of Change years from now being easily accessible and accepted.
Yep.
And people walking in and out and feeling good in doing so.
Yeah, because the meetings are so good. It's
Yeah.
I gotta always leave there feeling better. We always find a way to laugh.
At the end, a
At
lot
the
of
end
people
the
will say that.
meetings and-
They're like, we're sitting here waiting and, we don't know whether to go in or not. And they finally make the step to come in. And I'm like, how do you feel? And we'll ask them at the end. And they're like, I'm glad that I took that step to come in. I'm like, yeah, you're freaking right. It's scary at first, but you're glad that you did. And they're like, yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. So
Yeah.
I'm going to open the door a little bit. So I'm coming into your meeting, and I'm kind of anxious to come through the doors.
Mm-hmm.
Is there people at the door?
No.
No?
No. We are located at the Nordine Rec.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things we forget to tell people, because during the summer they have washer toss on one side. We are on the end side, I guess, the left side. There's a door, and once you go in that door, there's an upstairs. So we are located up there the first Wednesday and the third Thursday of every month. So when there's going to be a sign at the bottom of the door, and as you go up, you're going to see people there, because some people may be love to be welcomed as soon as they come in, but some people don't.
Yep.
So we want to make anyone that walks through that door and comes up the stairs and walk in not feel anything that they don't want to be expecting. So we make it as neutral. So usually someone's over there talking, someone's in the corner doing something, and when they come in and when they know that they're
Coffee pot
staying,
too.
yeah, and if they know they're staying, because this is the thing, we are not rushing to them, plow them over, hello. We say, hey, how are you? Take a seat, talk, have some coffee. So the way we talk to them, it's almost like we've known
But
them for 10
meetings
years.
are very structured. They start at 7:30.
Yeah.
Very structured meetings.
Solution based, and they're
Yeah.
pure focus solution based. So the structure that goes on during the meeting is very helpful. It's reminding us of the triggers that we may have, and we give thanks, but there's also discussion time that we have in there, and we talk about different topics, and we talk about how we can promote health and mental health, physical health, like in all different ways, and we share ideas and we support each other. And then when the meeting's done, that's a different kind of magic, because we're sitting there, because you can be more open. And you can say, well, Kevin, I heard when you were talking at this time and you were talking about this treatment over here, I've never heard tell of it. Can you tell me all about it? Well, yeah, I've tried this and it was shit, but I tried this one and it made my world open up. And I'm like, wow. So you learn things, and people are open and trusting. Like people say when they come there, they feel like they're not alone. And they never thought they would have ever, we've heard that from people. We've never thought we'd never go to a group a day in our life. And they can't see themselves going without the group because they feel so connected now.
See, what I've done is I've taken an active role now on Facebook. I joined a group that had like 17,000 people, and it's called Mental Awareness. It's a Facebook group. I got myself in there. Every post, I feel so alone. Every post is about I feel so alone. And then I think that's the number one thing. So when we get into the different things, I mean, groups like this is very, very instrumental to have somebody that's going through the same, similar experiences, not the same experience, but similar. Now, I read, because I was being a nosebody and wanted to read about the meetings, you don't talk about the specific trauma that set you in there. You just talk about triggers. Is that what I'm getting out of that? You don't talk about your whole incident, what happened?
No, there's no trauma talk.
Okay.
And there's no cross talk. So
Okay.
when we were talking about during our discussion topics, as helpers, so while we're discussing, let's say the topic is stigma, for an example, and so it's my time to talk, and I'm talking about stigma, and if I'm looking at Kevin trying to connect with him, and Kevin's like, yeah, I get that. There's none of that. So when I'm talking, we can't talk about specific events or cumulative events that happens for trauma talk. Because we can talk about, well, there's this day that I stopped my car and I seen this happen. And you can be kind of vague, but if you're going into, I know on January 9th and I seen this person and this person was involved, like, individual or specific trauma talk that triggers people. So then we do a timeout and we bring the conversation back. Yeah.
Yeah, so if we're talking stigma, and that's why we have a piece of paper and a pencil, and somebody's talking, they have 5 minutes or whatever to talk and
Yeah.
whatever they need. But
The trauma
something,
talk is
something
yeah.
that triggers us that say, "Oh, I want to talk to them about that." I'll write it down, and then after the meeting, that's when we have our talks.
Yeah, and that's what we remind during the meeting, that trauma talk is left for the professionals.
Yeah.
We're not professionals. We've just been there, done that.
Well, not only that, it could trigger an episode, correct?
Exactly.
And you want a safe environment.
That's exactly it.
Is that, yeah.
That's
okay.
exactly it.
Because that's one of the things I picked out. And some people are, as soon as they get in there, they want to just, hammer that down.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when you're getting into the aspects of your group. Now, another question I want to throw out there. I know Alcoholics Anonymous has support people. Do you guys have that?
What do you mean?
Kind of like a sponsor.
Oh, yes.
Like say that.
I need to sponsor myself, man.
But I mean, like a
Yeah,
mental
we connect.
health sponsor. Say, do you have numbers? No, it's
No.
only the group.
Well, in all fairness, under the friendship aspect, when we
Okay.
go in there, we make connections. And during our readings, because we have different readings, and it says if you choose to exchange phone numbers and connect outside these walls, you're more than welcome to do so.
Okay.
So during that time, we've had connections with people who have been isolated at one point, and now they come to meetings, and if they need help, they'll call any one of us.
Yeah.
So in that kind of aspect, Kevin, what do you want to share on that? Like we do, once we connected, it's like, okay, you need something, you call us. Or if we need something, we'll call you. So yeah, it's that connection that's made now that, I guess if you want to call it wouldn't be a sponsor at all, but
It'd be peer support.
peer support inside the walls and
Exactly. So I mean, that's fantastic, because a lot of people probably want to know something like that before they get into it, and they like the meeting. They probably need to know
Yeah.
about that.
And some people will connect, like we like to snowshoe in the winter, so there's some people in the group like to snowshoe, we'll get together, go do snowshoeing, or, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, so.
It's events that's outside of so we can socialize and connect also, because not all the times it has to be the group. So if Kevin and I are going snowshoeing, we'll put it out there saying, okay, we're going snowshoeing on Saturday, anyone's welcome to come, and 2 or 3 people are showing up.
Yeah.
So.
That's what it's all about, right? Is that support and
Yeah.
knowing you're not alone. It's huge. And these groups are huge, and they're starting to slowly come in. I know this started in 2014.
Yes.
I knew that. Imagine that.
Attaboy.
Did my research.
You did your
So-
research.
And you have over 30.
Well, because Langley in BC is just starting a chapter.
yeah.
Nova Scotia starting at the end of this month, and I'm in the process of getting one started in Newfoundland. So by the end of hopefully this year, we're going to have approximately 30 chapters
Okay.
going. So that now we're going to have, because here in New Brunswick we have here in Miramichi, Dieppe
Okay.
has Wings of Change as well. So PEI was the first one in Atlantic Canada. So there's PEI, Miramichi, Dieppe, Nova Scotia, and then Newfoundland. So there'll be 5 in the Atlantic provinces by the end of the year.
So are you helping coordinate to get them up and running? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my job now.
So that's your job.
Yeah, so besides facilitating and getting
Yeah.
the information out there,
Okay.
it's my job to help them, because we have to ensure that they're supported as well and that they're ready. So it's not just anyone that can say, I think I'm going to start a Wings of Change today. No, you're not. We're going to talk first.
Okay.
But the facilitators, we all connect and help each other anyway.
Yeah.
So my job is just to ensure that I'm there for them and they're ready to do this. Because one of the biggest things is when you start a chapter, you have to follow through the best you can. No one's perfect. Life happens. We're not saying that. But if you want to start a chapter, you need a co-facilitator and see it through. So once people start going and they have that support, we want to make sure that support is continuously there for them.
Okay. So it's wingsofchange.ca.
Wingsofchange.ca.
So in this, you'll be able to see the different locations.
Yep.
You'll be also, I found out that you can see the meetings online.
Yep. And I've Got Your Back 911.
Yeah.
.ca has all of our locations and times, and Badge of Life.ca
Okay.
also has all of our information Canada-wide for meetings.
That's amazing. So you guys are going places with this. I think it's amazing. Well, anyway, I would like to thank you, Nikki and Kevin, for taking the time to throw yourself out there. It's not an easy thing to do. I want to
you
thank
also.
I want
Yeah.
to thank you for being our community champions, because without people like yourself that start up these organizations, we don't have the help. Because let's face it, with government resources the way they are nowadays, they don't have these groups. So it's important that we take our stride, and you're breaking the silence. Huge.
And the stigma, and we thank you
Absolutely.
because
Yeah.
you also help do exactly what we do. Everyone has a part in changing our future, right?
So
thank
I
you.
will make it to a meeting, though. I guarantee you that, because I'd love to be a part of it, because I think I can add something to it. Maybe a little bit of flavor. Who knows?
Actually, let us know in advance. Kevin will make some of his special muffins.
Oh.
He's the cook. not me.
Okay. But like I said, like without you two starting the movement, I mean, you're gradually starting in the Maritimes. So be proud of what you're doing. People are going to love hearing this, I think. And it just shows your dedication, your passion. It's not easy, like I said. I mean, we stumble for words sometimes, but you guys did a fantastic job
Oh,
today.
thank you. And it's important to let people know also we're not affiliated with any organization. We're volunteers.
Okay.
So that's important for people to think, okay, no, we're volunteers. So we do this just for the love of what we do. And the biggest thing, and I'm going to stop myself on this, and my last quote, what I tell people, how do I know? I'll only endorse anything that I truly believe, my heart and soul, that's beneficial. And when we have a group and if I get triggered, at one time we used to have no one come to groups certain nights, we would run through the program and I felt better at the end of the evening.
It's part of our recovery journey.
It's part of our recovery journey.
And it'll be forever.
Yeah, it'll be part of us, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you both for joining
Thank
me.
you.
Thank
So-
you.
Anyway, this is Alan Hilchey. I'm your host, and this is Chat Club, and I'm signing off.